there'll be this thing of like, how do I know what God is telling me to do or what the guidance is? And it's usually pretty clear. It's like, you're not going to play music tonight. You know what I mean? It's like, but we want to like resist you know, the very clear message and go against it. So yeah. So I would well let me just say a couple things first. The Tell you about the Patreon to contribute and say I'm really grateful for all of you for being here and love what we're doing here and and excited for tonight. Excited for our retreat coming up, the New Year's retreat, and excited to be with quite a few of you here in person and more people that aren't here right now. I think it's going to be really special. So really excited to start the new year together. And I think you guys know that I do personal sessions and couple sessions and group sessions as well. So feel free to reach out about that. And I thought we'd start with a round of gratitude. Just what are you grateful for? And just kind of open up the space and anything that you're grateful for that you'd like to speak into the space. Meister Eckhart, one of my favorite quotes is Meister Eckhart. It's in the opening of my book, The Big Glow, and it says, um, "If the only prayer you ever say in your entire life is thank you, that should suffice." Um, so let's have a round of gratitude. Annie's chiming in by chat. She says family, and I'm super grateful that she's part of my family for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting um, that you brought this up, Brian, because I was gonna offer just to share gratitude for this space and this like community that's building and within the circle. Um, these Thursday nights, just being able to connect with you guys and explore like what's going on for me, like spiritually, my own personal connection with God and Christ, and just really grateful to have all of you guys here and have this space to open up and share and explore what we're all experiencing. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jacob.
Jacob, if I could tag on to that, uh, I've shared before, I come from a more traditional background, and it's been fascinating for me to watch and now participate with you all and listen to your thoughts and ideas. Brian, I'm grateful. I was telling a really good friend today about these sessions, and he asked all kinds of questions about how you manage the meeting, and I had nothing but positive things to say about your moderation of this group and your care for everyone. It's heartening to see, and I just feel privileged and grateful that you've opened it up. It's a good experience for me, and I love the adventure with Jeffrey, my son, who's also logged in here tonight. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Um, Grateful to have you here. I feel like you bring um, a line of questioning and inquiry that wouldn't be here otherwise. I think it's valuable for us. So appreciate your presence here, and I'm grateful for. I was kind of thinking about it, and there's people that are watching this
Hmm.
and and the replay, and not participating live as of yet. And as they watch week by week, it's sort of like we're characters in their, you know, almost like a reality show or something. We're not thinking of it that way. We're just being
Yeah.
ourselves. But
Yeah.
I do think like there's like this sense of like the right characters are emerging in the story for it to be this really interesting, rich, you know, beautiful play. And I was thinking about um a playwright or a screenwriter. I did take some screenwriting classes in college, and it's really interesting because the basic concept is not that this is the only way, but this is kind of the most standard way. You have a main character, and the main character has they have like a lesson to learn or some challenge they need to face, and they grow through the story in facing that adversity. Um, and so really if you really look at if you're the playwright, the characters um adversaries aren't really aren't really against them. They're actually there to like help them and support them to grow more into themselves. And so anytime that we're like challenged by anybody, or somebody's like triggers us, or somebody makes us feel uncomfortable, or whatever, these different things that happen throughout our lives, it's like when you're on this path, that's a good thing, because it's allowing you to basically come to a place of healing and come to a place of peace with that part of yourself, inside yourself. And especially if that's like a clear intention
Hmm.
together. Um, so anyway, I was reflecting on that component of like, you could see it as sort of like a play, and there's
Hmm.
this diversity of characters, but they're all like parts of ourselves.
Oh, I get
And
it, Brian. What you're saying is I'm the antagonist, right?
No, this is I wasn't saying it that. But I do
I'm
think
kidding.
I do think that there are people here that um feel pain around religion,
Hmm.
you know? And
Yep.
so we need somebody that represents that, you know,
yeah,
that we can have, that can reflect that, and can give that perspective, and can create potentially some healing, you know,
Yep.
around that. And then there are people here that are um, very much in the religious tradition, and maybe some of the other people can help open them up a little bit to some perspectives that are doesn't take them away from anything, but just kind of broadens the palette, you know. And that's kind of really, I think, a lot of ways like the intention of what we're doing is like these things that have been like seen as against each other, can we integrate and like bring them together, and
Hmm.
and find the there's like a, what's the word, like a
Yes.
synergy together.
yeah,
Brian, I don't want to monopolize this, but I just can't stand it. I want to say something else if I
Sure.
can.
Yeah.
Um, Back in the mid '90s, I was working on a graduate degree, and one of our required readings was a book by a guy named Joel Barker called Paradigms.
Hmm.
And paradigm paradigms and paradigm shifts back in the mid '90s. That was a cool
Hmm.
thing to talk about. And
Hmm.
one of the points he brought out in that book that I'll never forget, he said that there's always a reigning paradigm, and then a new paradigm starts to pop up,
Yeah.
and the people who most resist the paradigm shift are the ones who are the kingpins in the current paradigm. They
mm,
don't they
Yeah.
don't want to
Yep.
see that there is a major shift in thinking.
Yeah.
And so, Jeffrey shared with me that someone he's good friends with, when Jeff started to talk about the things that you are all experiencing, he immediately put up his shields and said, no, that's wrong. No, I don't want to hear it. And that's, to me, that's kind of regretful that someone who is a traditional believer,
Hmm.
if the paradigm is shifting a little bit in the way that people experience Jesus, I don't want to shut it off because it doesn't fit with my reigning paradigm. I want to be sensitive to maybe, what's going on. It's obvious that people are discovering Jesus who have no religious background, or who have a religious background that is completely non-Christian. And I've read and heard so many testimonies about people that Jesus appears to them in a dream or whatever. And it's I'm not going to say it's outside of the traditional Christian paradigm, because you read the book of Acts and that's what it's all about, is the
Hmm.
big paradigm shift.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how I'm thinking about this. And when I say I'm grateful, I that's where I am. I want to see if the paradigm, if it's shifting. I really am fascinated, and I want to watch what's going on.
Yeah. And I wonder too, is it shifting to something new, or is it shifting to the beginning, to the source point?
Something old. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's number two. I
Uh-huh.
think
Yeah.
it's we have um, we have so institutionalized Christianity that and I'm trust me, I don't know how to say it. I'm not rejecting my my 5 decades of experience and learning and teaching and church going and all that.
Hmm.
But there's just, I'll say it again, in the book of Acts, it's one massive paradigm shift, where the reigning religious community, when the apostles started to share what was going on, they they rejected it, but those who were open and sensitive could see that something new was happening, and they're the ones that got to experience it and the joy of it. So I just I'm just fascinated by all this, and it's obvious that Jesus is touching hearts in a way that it's an old way, but it's not the current reigning paradigm,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I'm just fascinated by it. So thank you. I'm
It is
really
it is totally fascinating, in so many levels to track what's happening right now. And I think to me it's about it has to have an aliveness, it has to have a life force, it has to have a presence that's felt. But when I say I don't know what the right word is, felt, but emotionally, yes, but beyond emotionally too.
right.
Deeper than even emotion or feeling or thought.
Hmm.
And it's like present in the now. And so it can't just be like, 'cause sometimes when there's certain kind of churches that it's there's not the alignment, so it's kind of dead. It's just reciting things and repeating things and reading stuff out of old books, and it needs to have the aliveness, uh, and then the aliveness kind of like lights you on fire, and then you feel the presence of God, and then you're this conduit for miracles
Yeah.
to
Hmm.
flow through you, and you're a conduit for the deepest, purest love,
Hmm.
to flow through you and to receive and to be in relationship with. Um, but the interesting part, when you kind of brought this up last week, is um, what I've seen in the new age scene is there can be a thing, not that it's intentional or that it's on purpose, 'cause it's kind of like unconscious, but there can be a thing of like, oh, now there's no rules, so I can do whatever I want,
Right.
which is like the ego. It's actually the ego that's the God, you know.
Hmm.
So I do whatever I want for myself, screw everybody else. I can manifest anything, doesn't matter what you want, that this kind of a thing, it's like a
Yeah.
narcissistic kind of a quality. So it's like, how do you be in this? I think this is one of your inquiries, Mark, is like, how do you be in this like incredible aliveness and the fire, the presence and the love, um, and not get lost in the ego, but have it really come from that pure place within yourself. So I think that's what we're exploring together. I don't think it's necessarily like a conceptual answer of like, oh, here's the answer in a sentence.
Hmm.
I think it's something that you have to
Yeah.
find, you know, inside yourself and connect with. So, but it's exciting to, be in a space where we're exploring the drinking from the living waters
Yes.
together. And Jacob was sharing something with me about how when you're so filled with this love, like in the true pure sense, then I think we touched on this last week too, then there is no intention to harm anyone or to hurt anyone. You're only interested in benefiting others and being of service and
Hmm.
supporting others. Yeah. Robin
Yeah.
has her hand up. Yes,
Yeah.
Robin.
Well, I was just really interested in what you two are talking about. And it makes me think of, Brian inspired me to watch the series on Jesus called The Chosen. And I don't really know how different Christian um, religions look at that movie. I would imagine there'd be all kinds of different opinions about how Jesus is presented in that movie. But what I'm also always interested in is the fact that Jesus could heal spiritually people, and he didn't like use material means to do it. It was really completely spiritually, and he also taught the disciples to do the same. It wasn't as though he was supposed to be just special, and only he do it, but he told his followers that they would do it, and even greater things than they did. And I grew up as a Christian Scientist. And, a lot of people, when you bring up that religion, will be quick to say they knew somebody who prayed about an illness and didn't have a healing. But for every one of those, there are, thousands and thousands of healings that did happen. And, I'm just, uh, but I'm interested when I sit back and I look at how strong like the pharmaceutical companies are, and um how really even very Christian people are will often be um so enveloped
It's
in.
cynical of healing.
No, they'll be very involved in the drug. And I think to myself, I wonder why other Christians don't, they kind of, well, they don't make as big a deal about the possibility of healing spiritually as much. I know they do, it's different for everybody, but they'll say, oh, well, take your medicines too, kind of.
Hmm.
And
There's some Mark, there's some groups that do and some that don't, right? There's some different, a lot of
Oh,
differentiation there.
absolutely. The You may have heard the term the charismatic
Yeah.
movement. That's where or Pentecostals they believe. Oh gosh, I could go deep into theology. I got to be careful here, but
uh,
that that everything Jesus did, I mean, literally walking around, touching people, healing them, speaking in tongues, gifts of knowledge and prophecy. There are groups that believe that all those gifts are alive today, and others who believe that those gifts were for a season, but then when the last apostle died, which was John, the guy who wrote the book of Revelation, when he died, that was the end of the apostolic age, and there's no more of that kind of instantaneous miracles, only in rare cases when God wants to. We all pray for, everybody prays for healing, but like you say, Robin, that, how much of that we become so drug dependent that any idea of a miracle taking place almost by default is shoved out of the picture.
It almost seems like there came a path, and where everything for some reason became focused on the material, where, well, let's take apart this substance and let's look into this rock and let's look into, and it became very much, and science just became so big, and taking over so much that the spirit sort of like gets lost. And I don't know, my parents, like, when we first got a TV when I was younger, they were first coming out. I remember the first time they saw a pharmaceutical ad on the television and they were just horrified because they felt it was purposely making people afraid, of a disease in order to aggravate that disease in their experience, and they went to a lecture where they had heard that, oh my God, they're going to use this box in order to push their agenda, and I'll never forget that.
Mm.
That's very wise and aware of your parents to recognize that back then in that moment. And Mark, thank you, man. I just want to share like a little bit on what you were saying, uh, just about being here in your traditional Christian past. I also have a traditional Christian background where I grew up Southern Baptist, and it's just very comforting to have you here and to hear the way that Jeffrey has talked about you, and the type man that you are. I think it's a blessing to have you here, and it really comforts me. So,
Oh, thank you.
thank you. Yeah.
Well, if I could say, you challenged me last week when you talked about jumping up on top of your truck, preaching in the parking lot or wherever it was. I've not done that in 50 years, and I was humbled by that, Jacob. And so the feeling's mutual. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that day will come. I think just sharing the beauty, like, I don't know, sharing what's in me, just getting it out.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not on top of my truck, but I feel like, just sharing it for whoever is seeking, and may we always be seeking like the true guidance of God and spirit, that spirit that moves through our flesh. May I always seek that guidance.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
I'd love to share go into healing a little bit if you guys are open to it. Feeling called to
Yeah.
share a little bit about healing. Robin brought it up. So I've done a lot as a healer, um, and I've seen a lot of healings in that process. And so I just wanted to speak to a couple of things about it. So Jesus would always say, and this is a quote, I believe, your faith has healed you, right? That's the quote that he would always say, your faith has healed you.
It's
And
made you
so,
well.
and so I think the key thing to realize about healing is it is a relationship. The healer, the healed is in relationship with the healer and the healee, or whatever you want to call it. They're in relationship together and they're working together. And it really ties into stuff that, you've talked, Robin, with me about law of attraction teachings. It's the exact same thing. It's like if you have doubt and you have fear, then it's not going to work, you know. But if you 100%, believe, 100% have faith, 100% see the vision of yourself being healed without any kind of without anything in opposition to that in your consciousness, then you can't not be healed. Like you have to be, it might not happen immediately. Maybe it takes a little bit of time. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does happen immediately. But the healing happens. And the healer is just, they're the one that is holding that vision without any kind of doubt, without any kind of fear. Like they absolutely see you. They already see you as healed. Like Jesus was already seeing these people as healed. And then he was like, he's basically asking them to see themselves as healed. And actually, there are stories where, in fact, there's a story where he goes back to his hometown share the good news and heal. And he's like, these people, they don't have the faith. Let's get out of here. Let's move on. So you can't, even Jesus couldn't heal somebody that wasn't open to being healed. you know. But anybody that was open, anyone that had the ears to hear and the eyes to see, anyone who had the faith, would be healed. And so I think that's just an important thing to understand about healing is like when you want to, when I say healing, it could be something amazing like, making someone blind who now they can see, but it could just be something simple, like not simple, but something not on that scale, let's say. Like maybe someone is, carrying some emotional pain, or they're not feeling well, or they're feeling kind of depressed, or they're feeling a little anxious, you know. Um, so in order to heal somebody, in that space, if you can just fully see them, in their wholeness, fully see them, in a deep sense of peace, fully see them in a deep sense of wellness, fully see them, um, as God's child, which is so basically what you're really doing is seeing them as they actually really are, and they're seeing the distortion of who they are. So it's like I see you as you really are, and I'm inviting you to see yourself as you really are. And so then when they see themselves, as they are, and you see them as they are, then they're healed, and that's I think that's a one way of explaining how healing works. So it is like you're saying, Robin, it's a consciousness, like a transmission of consciousness. It's like a spiritual, um transmission. Jacob's got some kind of fun. What is that?
Stars.
Stars soaring. Um, the story where I've thought a lot, I've kind of tripped out on the story of Jesus walking on water, right? And it's like, okay, well, if we all believed, well, that with 100% clarity and not any without any doubt that it was possible to walk on water, then we would see that. It would happen. Like, in other words, my point is, when you're in that field of infinite possibility, you're able to see and participate in miracles. Like the miracles are possible for you. But I think miracles are actually happening all the time. But if we're in a state of limitation and doubt and fear and distrust, all these things, then we can't see the miracles. We're not open to the miracles. And it's sad that that's the case for so many, but the more that you're open to the possibility of miracles, then the more miracles you see and the more miracles you participate and the more miracles you experience. Like there's people in the circle tonight that like their life is a miracle, the transformations they've had from where they were just a few years ago to where I would say most people in the space actually right now, the transformations they've had, just from just a few years ago to where they are now is it's a miracle. Like it can't really, it's no one would have predicted it. It can't really be explained, but it can be explained, in the way we're explaining it right now. Right. Okay, Jackie, go ahead.
Hey, when you said, gosh, that the faith will heal, you're healed by your faith.
Yeah.
I think that in our culture, there's so much secondary gain to identifying with your pain or your illness or your whatever it is you're carrying around that as opposed to once you step outside of that and see yourself as just a powerfully gifted child of God. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you could at the same time have a cancer that's not going to be healed, but
Mm-hmm.
you have already healed yourself because you have stepped into eternity, regardless, while you're
Yep.
still here. You're
Yep.
connected to God no matter what your circumstances are.
Yeah.
And you just, but it's so the healing really comes in ceasing to identify yourself as a person with a disease or whatever. And maybe, kind of back to Robin's point, our culture is set up to go, oh no, let's come over here to these drugs and these things and these doctor visits. I have one friend that goes to so many doctor visits, and that's how she is seen. Like, she gets a gain because for that moment, that provider is paying her 100% attention. But I find that, like, I suffer from a chronic pain issue, but I find, yeah, I'm busy. Like, I'm focused on my purpose and taking care of my family, even though they're all grown, and work and seeing a bigger and what I can do with the resources that I've gained from all of that. Like, my focus is not on that disease. So, I mean, that's my point. Is I think the path to healing is really identifying as a child of God and the strength and the power that you've been given. So that was my 2 cents.
Amen. I think you bring up a great point, which is important to make, which is because some people just look on the physical level, and but there's a deeper level of healing that's actually way more important than the physical level. The physical healings do happen, um, and you give this all to God, right? So you're just surrendering to whatever God has in store for you, you know, and trusting that what you'll be given is what is best and highest for you, right? So the physical body is temporary. So someone could, I like your example of cancer. So someone could not be healed of cancer, they could die of cancer, but there was a spiritual healing that happened, right? And I've been in this space where the physical body is not well, but the soul is joyous inside, like literally joyous in a way that's not touched by the body. Um, when I had my chronic fatigue syndrome when I was in my early 20s, there was intense pain a lot of times, but that's when I was like first opening spiritually, and so there'd be these days where I would just feel really bad physically, but just feel like so joyful and blissful spiritually, regardless of the pain. And I think there can be something where you physically the body is has some kind of cancer or some kind of illness or some kind of medical diagnosis, right? But spiritually you feel whole inside, and that's the most essential healing, is to go from feeling like someone who's fractured inside to feeling like someone who's whole inside, and you become whole inside by realizing who you really are, and that's the true healing.
Yeah, I've actually been doing that myself, more and more, just identifying with my who you really are. Who are
Yeah,
you really?
yeah,
It doesn't change. And I do it, I also do it for other people when, whenever I think of it, many times a day, seeing maybe a crippled, a homeless person, and first tempted to think, oh, poor them, but then I'll close my eyes and uh, not if I'm driving, but I will think to myself, that is a picture of them, but that is not who they really are. Who they
yeah,
really is the same as everyone,
yeah.
the way God made them.
I think
And
that's exactly how Jesus operated. That's exactly how he would like move through the world and see people, and that's how the healings would happen. Because she'd be like, I don't see you as someone who's crippled, I see you as whole, you know?
Mhm. And also on a little bit lesser than spiritual healing level, I've been coming more and more aware of a lot of different alternative remedies that are very simple, that people are making pretty big claims, that heal just about everything. And when I first started hearing those, I was like, yeah, 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 yeah. But I hang with some people that are really into this kind of thing, and I've seen the results with some of them, and I'm going, wow. And it's funny because you'll share something with somebody, a video about something, and with some people it just goes right over their head as though it doesn't exist, like, and other people will go, oh my gosh, and they'll really catch it. So it just depends on what kind of level you are on. That all these possibilities are here, and but some people can see it and grasp it, and other people, they're not ready to admit it.
It kind of comes back
Well,
to this, it kind of comes back to the same thing, right? It's like you have to start off with, you have to have some faith and belief in the remedy,
Mm.
for it to allow it to enter your field energetically.
Mm.
so one of the first questions Brian asked me, if anything's possible, what do I want to create in my life? And so over the years, I've thought about the miracles that happen every day, that babies are born from a woman's stomach, from a sperm and an egg, something that we can't even see with our eyes. The earth is spinning on an axis orbiting a sun, and trees, plants grow. All of this stuff is a miracle that God has designed. And if that stuff is possible, that's like so trippy. I mean, you can't even come up with a science fiction better than what this existence is. To put any kind of limitations on, like, look what God has already done. What is there that is not possible? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if there's anything that's not possible for God to create and do. And I think it's just limitless. There's no limits.
So Jacob, I'm with you on that, and my burden is when Jesus prayed and somebody was healed, and then he commissioned the disciples to do the same, to go out to cities in Judea and pray. He said the whole purpose of that was to reveal that he was who he was, that he was God Almighty. And um, so my burden is that yes, we need to have faith in order to be healed, but it's not faith in our own. If we believe that we're going to be healed strong enough, then we'll be healed. That's
Right.
faith in your faith. That's not faith in anything other than your own faith. The ultimately the person getting the glory for the earth spinning on the axis
Yes.
and somebody being healed is God Almighty, and that's the ultimate.
Absolutely. And Christ even said, somebody somebody called him master and came to him and talking about all these things that he's doing. He's like, no, like, you're calling me master. It's my father. Like,
Mm.
this is done through my father. This is God's work, not me. This is just coming through me.
In A Course in Miracles, they say that Jesus was just like the elder brother. His amazingness was the fact that he realized these things first, and that he was trying to show us all that we all had this same ability, um, and that we would do these things and greater things. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
We do. So yeah, so to bring those two things together, we do these things when we are kind of for God, and God is the healer, and God is the source of creation. God is the infinite love at the source of creation, right? So
Yeah.
if God is the source of creation, so in other words, it all the amazing thing is this is all very logical and rational. So if you're a conduit for the source of creation, then by definition you are able to create things, but you're not the creating it as the ego. It's being created through you as the conduit.
Mhm.
So the way to be a healer would be to be a conduit for the source of creation to flow through you. But also the person who is receiving needs to receive the source of creation. And if
Amen.
they don't receive the source of creation, not open to it, then it's not going to work out.
And if they're thinking it's coming from you, it's not going to work out.
Right.
Yeah,
If
that's interesting because I don't know about that. Let's look at that one because there's definitely people that don't know much about God, don't talk about God, that do get healed. And they're like, what just happened? I don't understand what happened,
okay,
you
yeah,
know? And then they look into it and then they find out later, what happened. So I think it's some kind of a state of just there in the moment, there's it's almost like the mind is just quiet and the heart is available, and there might not be much knowledge. Might not be much understanding in the moment. But as long as you're kind of in a humble, open state, you'll be able to receive it. And then, you can kind of make sense of it at a later point, perhaps. But there's like that saying, like God works in mysterious ways, you know?
yeah.
Well, speaking, if I may chime in, and
Yes, sir. You've been quiet so far. Please share.
what you said, by your faith you are healed.
Yes.
So that to me sounds like the placebo effect, right? You
Hmm.
just said about the mind,
Yeah.
because and going back to what Robin was saying earlier, the very damaging effect the scientific method or the scientific train of thought has had, if you consider it from the Industrial Revolution this way, how because beliefs are so powerful. This is what I'm the message here that ties all of it together. Beliefs are so powerful. What you believe, the energy that it goes through the mind, and what so um, for example, what you were talking about earlier, Robin, when you mentioned about how pharma has created this fear and so forth, and this fear, very disempowering. This this ability that this innatural ability that we have, that our divine spirit has to heal us, to actually to realize that we are already healed, that dis-ease starts in the it manifests in the physical body, but it's tied into something else. The dis-ease, it has its origins not in the physical. It manifests in the physical, but it's a sign of or of something, some energetic imbalance in another energetic body. And so this scientific belief that, for example, um, that has denied the invisible, the scientific method, if it cannot be reproduced, and measured in a lab, and the whole scientific lab, and how that has been abused, as you were referring you know, to sell their drugs, they have disempowered us in many ways. Um, Made us rely on this external, chemical, and this fear-based system, right? I mean, the health system is not a health system; it's a disease system. It's I think it's profoundly sick, and so um, indeed, I think that we have the absolute power, um, through our connection to our divinity, to manifest absolute health and healing, and you know and so anyway, I was going to get to something else, and I just lost my train of thought, so
Well, I
I
think
was
what
going somewhere else.
what you're doing that is valuable is um one of the things I feel called to do is bring in the integration, and this is like a shared exploration, right? Bring in the integration of religion and science, or spirituality and science. So science kind of came in, and then there's like kind of like this, oh, well, this all this spiritual stuff is a bunch of rubbish, it's not real, it's fake, it's a bunch of woo whatever woo woo stuff. Um, but yeah, I think what you're saying is science is saying the exact same thing in different language. The placebo effect. Placebo effect is like if you have the faith, if you have if without any doubt, and you really believe, then healing happens. And it's the science shows you the exact same thing. So that's the thing I find really interesting is, different religions, science, whatever, different there's different ways of using language and frameworks that are pointing at the one truth, you know.
Yeah.
So what I see is that there's actually only one truth, and there's different words, there's different frameworks for pointing at that truth.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the, pharmaceuticals, what people will say, um, there's something that you're lacking. You are not whole. You're lacking something. So we need to put something into you, um, through a pill or a shot or this or that. Whereas the spiritual healer looks at a person and sees that there is nothing lacking and that they are whole as God created them already.
Amen.
Yeah. And again, just to finish up on that subject, there's this whole um, polarization in regards to the theme of science. Like yes,
Yeah.
no, if
Yeah.
it's good, if it's bad, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think like with everything, and also like with religion,
Hmm.
I think I mentioned it that there's so many really good things within organized and institutionalized religion. There's a lot of truth. I mean, there's a lot of lots of it in all religions, not just Christianity. But and this is the same in science. There is also a lot of ill-intended manipulation. And so, for example, there's I had this discussion the other day with somebody about about science and scientific evidence, right? And they're like, if you look at the bad stuff that's been done under the flag of science, the manipulation and the for profit lying to whatever, and to take that to deny, for example, the scientific evidence of geological evolution of the planet. You can document it. There is this scientific evidence of, physical events that have happened in the earth, the continents, Pangea, I mean, the history, so you can't, and it's the same with religion. You can't say because there is this one bad element or because there is this ill-intended element that automatically discards or doesn't give credence to this all other stuff. So there's not, it's for me it's not black or white in that respect. It's not, science is not all bad and it's not all good, and the same with religion. It's not all bad, but it's not all good. Because the human factor, there's been, they both they both have been affected by human personalized interest, egos, self-serving, self-serving people who have manipulated things for their own benefit and not for the highest good. And so that's why I think we have, in both science and religion, you have some really, really good things and some not so good things, and some deep core truths and some untruths, it all across the board. So and again, it's our job to discern. That's the name of the game, is discernment, you know.
Hmm.
But going back to the placebo effect and the healing, I was just when you were talking earlier, I just read, a healer is exactly, a healer doesn't heal you. A healer leads you to your own source of healing, your own internal source of healing. So, but yeah, it does have a lot to do with what you believe and your own connection to your own divine power.
Yeah, I've been thinking about also, we may, like have a great desire to have a completely spiritual healing, but, I might not be there yet. I might not be quite there yet. And so I will use material means for a while. And I think of it as like the tares and the wheat growing together, the story in the Bible of where they planted good seed, and then someone came along and threw in some uh, some tares, and they started all growing together. And um, someone said, "Oh, let's go in there and take out all the tares right away." And I don't know, I guess it was Jesus said, I'm not sure about that, but don't do that, because if you go in there and you try to separate it all now, you're going to take out some of the good with the bad. Let them, allow it to grow for a while together, and then as they mature, you will be able to see what is a good thing to have and what you want to take out.
Anybody who hasn't shared yet want to share
Or express gratitude.
or express gratitude? We kind of got off of that one, but yes, you can still express gratitude anytime. You can express gratitude. Gratitude is itself a healer, a tremendous healer.
Mm.
I start my day with, my morning meditation is a combo meditation prayer, and that's my ritual for starting the day. And it's a long list of, it's my whole list, and it keeps growing of things I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for, that's how I start my day every day now for quite a while,
Hmm.
and I think it's a very important, you know, uh, grateful for being alive today, grateful for the roof over my head and the food on my plate, and the privilege of living in this, safe, tranquil, area. We know that half the world is under, a lot of stress. So, recognizing, counting your blessings, right?
Hmm.
And being grateful for each and every single one. And in a way, grateful for all of the divine protection in my life, recognizing it every single day, and connecting with I call them my divine protection team, and addressing them every morning, and giving thanks to them for having watched over me my entire life. And they still do, and every day. And so for me, it's every day. That's how I start, with this long list of thank yous, individual thank yous. And then, of course, to uh, God,
Beautiful.
which is all of those.
Yeah.
Everything, each one of those guardian angels, each one of those divine spirits,
Yep.
each one of us is a fractal or an expression of God.
Hmm.
The only one that is all. That is one of my other names for God. I have, I've developed several. It's the only one that is all, because there's all these individuals, and that's a very interesting word, by the way, if I may share this. Individual, right? If you break that word up, each of us individuals, right? Each one of us humans, a planet is a being, a solar system is a being, a galaxy is a being, a universe is a being. And so there's all these individuals, indivisible, dual, the fractal. And then, of course, deep in the core is God of each fractal within each being, because God is all there is. And so it's, um, understanding and realizing um, how the mechanics of, you know, of God being in everything and of everything, and everything is. This is what we discussed in the other day. Everything I see, the moon, the trees, the puppies, you guys, you're all expressions of God. Everything is an there. In fact, nothing exists that isn't
Mm.
an expression of, because all that is all there is. That's what omnipresent means. Everywhere, all the time.
So let me
You
tie a
know.
couple things
So.
into that with gratitude. What I call like this is what I call the second level, the second level of gratitude. So there's like gratitude of like, oh, I won an Academy Award, or oh, I got a raise at my job. I'm grateful for these things, right? These are kind of obvious things to be grateful for. So then there's like this other level of gratitude for things that maybe you don't normally notice, right? So I'm grateful for the way the sun is shining through the light of the leaves right now in the tree. I'm grateful for, oh, I didn't notice the birds were singing. I'm grateful for the birds singing. Like these kind of more subtle things you can be grateful for. And then there's and these are ways to, you're talking about recognizing God in all things, right? These are ways through the gratitude you're recognizing God in these things you don't normally notice. But then the deepest level is can you be grateful for things that didn't go the way you want them to go? Right? That's yeah,
Mm.
that's where you really start exploding spiritually. Like until that, if you don't get to that level, it's not much interesting is really happening. But if you can like be grateful for, I'm grateful that
Heart heartbreaking,
yeah,
heartbreaking, the
yeah,
heartbreaking lessons,
grateful that I got
that's
sick. I'm grateful
Amen.
for the breakup. You know,
That I suffered.
I'm
Mhm.
grateful that, I mean that this stuff sounds crazy to say, but there's you could be grateful for losing your house. You could be grateful. I'm not saying it happens like in the moment. Maybe it takes years, but
Yes.
there's like a sense of like on this deepest level, God is in everything, right? Just like you were saying, Antonio, right? So if God is in everything, then everything actually is work you it's like the faith. It's like this deep faith that actually everything is working for you, and not against you. And so you have to like let go of the ego. So gratitude, this kind of deeper level of gratitude kind of cracks open the ego because the ego thinks it
Mhm.
knows best. The ego thinks I want it my way. I know the way it's supposed to be and I want it my way all the time. And if it's not my way, it's wrong. And then as you go through life, things are definitely not going to go your way. Like I don't say things are certain usually, but this is certain. Things are not going to go the way that you think they're going to go. Right. So then you have like a choice point. What do you do? Do you just be in a state of resistance and anger and resentment and it didn't go my way and or is there some level of like spiritual maturity where there's like, okay, it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, but I'm grateful for the way it went or the way it's going because I know that God knows what's best for me. God's got me, let go and let God. And then I think when you can have gratitude in that kind of way, some people would even call it like radical gratitude. Something really profound opens up in that space, and you really start to like um, open up to who you really are, and you really start to open up to this real relationship with the source of creation in a whole other profound level. So in my case, just to give a quick example, because Robin made a point a few weeks back of like it's good to kind of not get too abstract and kind of bring these things back to our own lives. So in my case, I could use all kinds of examples, but the kind of big one for me was when I had this chronic fatigue syndrome when I was in my 20s, and it was just went on for years. And it was incredible levels of fatigue and intense headaches and pain and weird rashes and it was just debilitated for quite a while. And I just had this sense of like, and I almost felt like it wasn't a choice because I had to kind of accept the situation as it was. And I just had a sense of like, I think maybe there's something here for me. Like, I think this is leading me to something, like life didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. I had a lot of different ideas for my life and that was all kind of collapsing, and falling apart. Um, but maybe this is happening for a reason. It's just kind of this idea of like, maybe this is happening for a reason, kind of the first time I had that kind of a thought. And let me see if there's something here for me. And I'm open to receive it. I'm open to accept what's here for me. I'm open to listen. So it kind of humbles you, you know. I'm open to listen. Like, God, if you're real, I'm open to listen. Please give me guidance, give me something, like give me some direction. Please help me you know? And in those moments, like something profound, you know, enters, and this is universal. Like something profound that truth will enter you and guide you. And I look back now and I'm like, that's one of the most, you know, if I have one of the things I have the most gratitude for is that experience because that opened me up on this entire journey. That wouldn't, I don't know if that journey would have happened at all if I wasn't like humbled and open in that way. And I think, most of you, if not all of you, like have your own stories in that way, which is different than mine, but, in your own unique way, you have a similar story.
Yeah, Brian, for me it's addiction to alcohol. If I was not addicted to alcohol for close to 20 years, I would not be here right now. I would never never have taken the steps that have led me to this place right now. So I can relate to that.
Hmm.
I'm grateful for suffering through that addiction, and I'm grateful to be here right now with you guys.
Mm, yeah.
How do you feel like it opened you? Like what came through? Like what was the lesson or
Um,
what
I've
did it open in you that kind of changed the trajectory of your life?
well, what I just got so down and out and just tired of being that depressed and being that addicted to something. I mean, I had tried to quit several times, but it wasn't until like I started feeling like there is a higher purpose to my life and like started
Mm,
searching out what that was that I guess I kind of lost focus of the alcohol a little bit, put my focus on figuring out what that was, and it just kind of
mm,
fell off to the wayside. And then, I mean, now there's just no desire whatsoever to drink.
yeah,
And it just kind of switched on its own without me constantly. In the beginning, I was constantly trying to, stay away from it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. This
but
you're bringing to my mind. Sorry, go ahead. When you're finished.
oh, oh no, you can go ahead. I was done.
You sure?
Yeah, positive.
Okay. Um, yeah. This was coming through the share today actually. So I'm good you're bringing this up. We could do a whole evening on this topic, so maybe we probably will actually. But just to bookmark it, um, addiction. It's like we just we're not that complicated as human beings, really. In a way, it's simple. It's like we just want to feel good, or to put it differently, like we just want to stop the pain, right? So we have
Mhm.
different ways and strategies of trying to just stop the pain and trying to feel good. And like alcohol is one of those things, weed, eating sweets or, fast food, or there's all different kinds of things that people have of ways that they're trying to just like, you know, feel good and um, get away from the pain, right? And so one of the things that I've been sharing over the last like year or two is God is the greatest high there is. And that kind of ties into like, what we started talking about in the beginning with Mark is like there is something very like visceral in this. And it's like you just feel so incredible that it's like alcohol, like that's like why would you that's not even an option.
Yeah,
Like it's no comparison.
Mm,
When you feel like the love
yeah,
of God, like you don't need any of this other, like not only you don't need it, you don't want it because it's no comparison. So that was kind of like that was one of the confusions for me, or like a lot of things I didn't really understand when I was like, kind of being taught about this stuff growing up and the church and everything, was like I thought that you tried to not do anything that made you feel good. And I was like, well, why that doesn't make any sense. I want to do things that make me feel good. That's really what I thought, Mark. I didn't really
mhm.
get it, and that's kind of like the Catholic thing too. Um, So I'm like, well, this is not for me. Um, but then, maturing and going into the path, it's like, oh, they didn't tell me there's something like a zillion times better. That's why you don't do those things is because you can open yourself to this thing that's like the most amazing thing that there is in the universe, and then you're just naturally high and you're naturally in a state of love and
Mhm.
and then you're an expression of that. And so you don't need other things. Um,
yeah,
you're not chasing other addictions, is my point.
yeah. Jacob and I were just discussing this the other night. So it's interesting you bring it up. But yeah, and when we were talking about it, it's like when I was in my addiction, I thought the happiest I could be was Saturday night at the bar, couple beers, 4 or 5 beers deep. But then put that down, and it's just it's just like it just keeps getting better and better and better and better as I go deeper and deeper and deeper into this connection and spirituality.
Hmm.
So it's exactly what you're saying.
It's a little better
And
than the beer on Saturday night, right?
Oh, it's 100% better. Yeah.
and
Woo.
there's
I
and
mean,
there's no
I
and there's no side effects. There's no coming down. There's no,
Right.
you
right.
know, it's we could say it different ways, but it's in a way, to me, it's like the natural state. It's like what we were designed to be.
Hmm.
Amen.
And we've um lost our way, and we're finding refinding it as a human species.
Well,
You know
I'm happy to be
the
here finding it
research.
with you guys.
Lots of people talking at the same time. Whoever wants to go next. Well, room for everybody.
I was just going to mention that there was a study about addictions, on the subject of addictions.
Hmm.
I don't know if you guys have come across it. Where they did this study, of course, with mice, and I think they had like a mice isolated, and he was able to either drink water or have water with cocaine, and so he kept going back to the cocaine, right? And so they came up with this entire thing about addictions, and then many years later, somebody looked at that study again and realized that this study was done with this mouse, this rat or this mouse, completely isolated with no other company. And so they redid the experiment, but and it was the same ability to have either water or water with cocaine, but there was a whole bunch of other stuff to do. There was community, and there was activities, and so when the rat or the mouse was stimulated by coexisting with others, by having community, by having other activities to do, other things to captivate their interest,
I think the
and
word is
so they
connection,
absolutely
right? Connection.
exactly
The mouse had connection.
exact yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was proven that it was not, that what was causing the addiction was the lack
Hmm.
of connection, not not anything else. And so we are this and this is kind of what goes back to what I was saying before. Like right now, we're gathered here, each one of us a reflection of God, an expression of God. And so, yes, of course, having your own internal connection, but when we share it, when we have this connection with other similar, expression, and so then there's no need for the addiction. When we have community, when we have connection with God in the shape of other people, and supportive, loving, caring community, and that type of stimulation, and then like you just said, what's better than that? You don't need
Amen.
the other, you,
Yep.
so
Mhm.
yeah.
You choose the fresh living water, not the tainted cocaine water.
Jacob, you're making me hungry.
Oh man, it's steak and potatoes and Brussels sprouts.
Oh my
Delicious.
word.
Thank you, Haley.
Anybody else want to share? I think we'll close it out. I appreciate the Eckhart Tolle had this phrase, the frequency holders, the people that are quiet and they're just present. They're just like holding the vibration with us. Just want to give a shout out to you guys. Appreciate all you for being here. Appreciate the chat, people sharing in the chat. Appreciate you, Darian, for being here. And let's carry this energy forward with us the rest of the evening, going forward. Share this presence with whoever we come in contact with. And make it a great week. And see you next week.
Happy 12/12, everybody.
Thank you, Antonio.